Yes, we have a few seconds before 2 o'clock, and it'll be time for fun. So, yes, I'm on live. I am live now. That's okay. I am live now. It is 2 o'clock on Wednesday. I'm Wendy, so it must be time for our weekly chat. Every week I come to you to share my thoughts on a very specific topic, and I work my way through the alphabet. Today we're on the letter L, and we're talking about labeling, self-labeling to be specific. But before we begin that, I wanted to remind you that my course is available anytime. It's an introductory course. It has 4 projects in it, all related to making hearts, 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 hearts. And in this very basic introductory course, which costs $75, you'll learn the basic techniques of Oshie. Then, if you want to advance further, there are further courses to take. So that's available to you. If you go just above where I'm speaking, you'll find Learn How to Do Contemporary Oshie in the featured section, right above my head. You could do that. It's available anytime. The other thing is that there is a free downloadable PDF called The Creative's Companion. Now, this is from a book that I wrote and produced cards called The Spiral of Life. There's 41 images here. There's 14 here that I chose specifically because they are related as artists and creatives. Get in the way. Oh, here comes my stupid music. We'll get rid of that. Computer doing its thing. So let me quit music. So the thing about the Creative's Companion is that you can use it as a tool to help you along the way when things get kind of bumpy. We all have bumpy days. We all have days where things just go south or they don't go at all. Now, I will tell you, I just had one of those days yesterday, but I walked through it, I got through it, and part of the deal is every day I look at an image and I think about how that image is playing in my life. Am I got a good spin on it, or do I have a flip on that? Do I have a negative idea about my work and what I'm doing and what I'm thinking? And you can get in your head very easily as a creative. One of the ways we get in our head is we create labels for ourselves. So let's just look at an example of what I used on the video that I put out this week. Is you have 2 sides of the coin. The positive side, I'm talented, I'm creative, I love to explore, I'm clever, I always like trying fun new things. All of that being labels that I've given myself that give me permission to be creative. On the other side, there's the I'm not creative. This is too hard. I'm too old to learn something new. Nothing ever works. Those are negative labels. And I will tell you, either way, you will be right. The labels we give ourselves are insidious. They are corrupting our creative flow, because what they do is they stand in between us and our forward motion. So if you say, I'm not creative, and you come and take a class from me, the part of you that wants to be creative is over here, And then there's this negative self-talk, this label that says I'm not creative. So what happens sometimes when my students take a class in spite of their own belief system? They actually come in shaking, because as they actually start doing the very thing they thought they couldn't do, they come up against this juxtaposition where they're being shown they can create and do something beautiful against their own belief that they can't. Something's got to give, and in front of them is proof. So there's tremendous amount of upheaval when people face their creative selves, having believed for decades that they couldn't be creative. It's a very humbling experience for me, but it's also something that I would like you to think about. So I've been asking you lately to take notes or jot down some words when you're listening to these Wendy on Wednesday chats, and think about what labels this week you might give yourself, or maybe labels you agreed or accepted because someone in authority told you. So we all have events that happen in our childhood that can, I don't want to say brand or mark, but I want to say have an indelible impact on us that then travels with us through our lives. There is often young people that do something different than everybody else, and a teacher or person in authority unwittingly labels it dumb, stupid, that's not right, you didn't do the assignment right, negates it in some way. And that creative mind that was already tenuous shuts down and never opens again. It's a very sad thing, but I have many, many, many stories from students over the years who have told me some version of that the label someone else gave them was accepted as authority. Sometimes this happens in art school. You go in, you're all excited, you start doing the projects, and then a teacher gives a critique that just completely flattens you because you felt really good about what you were doing. And teachers can be cruel, often unconsciously, but sometimes very consciously, that if you don't do what they want you to do the way they want you to do it, it's wrong. Well, anybody that does art for any period of time in an exploring mode, not doing the same thing over and over, but exploring, knows that in the creative process, you have to make mistakes. You have to either erase or start over again in order to get the concept that you're learning. It doesn't happen in a snap. It happens over time, and it happens with diligence and practice. Just like piano, just like cooking, sometimes you have to make mistakes in order to get the light bulb to turn on. It isn't wrong. It's just a step in the learning process. So another thing about labeling is that all labels are actually affirmations. Now, here's an example of an affirmation. I am creative. It's a label, but it's also an affirmation. It's affirming something about myself. So if you say, I am not creative, you're affirming that you're not. So there is a thought out there in the world that's looking for something for proof. So if you go into a class knowing that you're not creative and you're being asked to be creative, you will do something to sabotage that expression in order to prove that you're not creative. Or you'll attract to you someone that wants to negate what you're doing to prove you're not creative. You will do that. So in a way, you're affirming the negative. Why we do this, I don't know, but we all do it. So take a look at your belief system. In particular, I'm curious about why many of you are watching this but have never even signed up for a course. Why? Is there a belief system that you have in place that negates the possibility of taking something and learning something new? Possible. So if you're not talented or creative and you say you don't love learning and all of those things you're affirming in the negative, I'm not talented, I'm not creative, I can't draw a straight line with a ruler, you're probably one of the people that have decided you can't take my classes or anyone else's that involve creativity, because in truth, you don't believe it's possible. So how can we turn this negative self-talk, this negative labeling around? And that's by switching out how you say it. So if you say, instead of I can't draw, you could say, I'm learning to draw. That puts you in action. It's not making some claim you have no proof over, but it's giving you an opening where the possibility of learning to draw is in existence. And you can move into learning to draw to the point where you can draw. If you say, I'm not talented, how about this? I'm finding my talents. Just a little play on words. I'm unable to learn something new because I'm too old. Sound familiar? How about I'm learning new things every day? Doesn't say you're going to master Adobe Illustrator in one day. It doesn't say you're going to go out there and paint like Raphael. No. What it means is you're willing to entertain the possibility that these things can happen. It's not airy-fairy. It's right out of your mouth. If you affirm you cannot do something, you will be right. You're always right. So all labels are affirmations. Many of us use negative affirmations all the time. It's a double negative here. So you get used to it. You say it maybe even unconsciously, and you've bought into the whole idea. You're not even thinking about it anymore. You just completely, you might like watching what I talk about. You might like looking at what I do, but the possibility that you could do it, not going to happen, because your belief system is so concretized, so solid within you, that you truly believe it's not possible. You'll be right. But do you want to be right? So when you catch yourself saying something that's negating possibility, you need to reword how it comes out of your mouth. Not because there's some, I'm rich and famous. No. I'm learning. I'm learning now. I'm doing this now. It's not saying all of a sudden you're magically some amazing new talent. You might be somewhere down the road, but right now you're going to start exploring. You're going to start looking at what's available when you stop negating possibility. There's a whole thing that I've talked about before that some artists use. They believe that they are inherently gifted and talented. There's even programs in the school called Gifted and Talented. I always thought that was a really negative place to label anybody, because first off, it sets up very false expectations. All students should be given opportunities to be taught by amazing teachers that pull out of them the love of learning, so that the things that are amazing to learn about, instead of being some up there fancy gifted talenting, or something everybody wants to do because they're excited about it. But such is the fact that the school systems have dumbed us down so far. Kids aren't even drawing their names anymore. They're printing. Cursive has been taken away. Well, don't get me going on that. So it becomes your truth if you say it long enough. And many people that come into my classes have been saying negative things about their creativity to themselves for decades. I also have students that break into tears when all of a sudden they start actually drawing. Or all of a sudden they start creating a piece of art that they didn't think was possible. It's an amazing and almost, it's very humbling, but it's also a very spiritual moment for the person who's having this epiphany. That, oh, wait a minute, I can do this. Now, what does that mean? It means that someone lied to them and they believed it. Someone told them something negative and they took it in as truth, capital T, truth. That kind of harmful labeling is still being done in the school systems. They still have competitions for kids where only one kid can win and all the rest, loser. That's how the system is played out. Only one can win. Why can't there be 30 different creative expressions? Why do you need to pick one? I don't get it. But it's true, and I bought into the system when I was younger. I competed in art shows. I did all kinds of things like that because that was the structure in which we were thrown as young people. And the hope is that somewhere along the line, that belief system will fade away and we'll get something a little healthier and a lot more motivational for our students. So if you are a learner who's always wanted to try something new and different, you might want to think about every time what comes out of your mouth is a negation of your creative possibilities. I want you to erase it and find a way to reword it so that instead of negating you, you're opening the door to the possibility that you could become talented, gifted, creative, and having fun. The biggest place to do that is to allow yourself to learn something new and different, regardless of your age, regardless of your previous conversations about your level of creativity. It's probably in there waiting. There's also another area that's very interesting. I was a director of an art center when it was forming. And I had a lot of people that did a lot of different things in art and craft. And the quilters and the fiber artists, spinning, weaving, and all that, thought of themselves not as artists, not even as creatives, but as a lower class of crafty people. They could be clever, they could be talented at what they do, but they weren't artists. You know, you kind of see this divisive thing that had happened over many, many decades of particularly women's arts, the quilting, the sewing, the weaving, things traditionally women have done, as being less than an oil painting or a sculpture or even drawing, because it was practical. Well, I think there are so many amazing artists in the world of quilt and sewing and weaving that it just boggles the mind how they've all pretty much bought into that they aren't that. They are just this. And their own negation of their talents and their abilities and their sense of color and balance and form, all the skills you learned as an artist put into something that's actually a useful object, blows my mind. But that's what happens, is that over time, we've developed an entire system, a hierarchy. At the top are people that do sculpture and marble and fine oil paintings, and then you work your way down the list. Women traditionally were not even allowed to do many of the art forms that they do today because they were considered a man's domain. And I could go in that direction too, but I won't. It is not fair to you to believe the negative self-talk, the labels. It isn't fair. I wish you wouldn't do it. I wish you would start realizing that it's the negative self-talk that keeps you from even starting something new. If you go into a class with that belief system, you'll find ways to, shall we say, screw it up. You'll find ways to stop doing it because your belief system is still very strong. So it is almost like we're taught to sneer at people that use their talents and create things, because we have to do something to explain why we aren't doing that. So there's this whole group of people that if you say, I'm an artist, they go, well, I guess you can't do anything practical. Because that's what they heard. They're repeating what they learned. Most of it unconscious. A lot of it cruel. Because if they can't do it, neither can you. So I've spoken for 20 minutes now to see if there is anything that I'm saying that might spark your imagination or your thoughts. And this isn't meant to be harsh or critical. It's meant to be motivational. Hope it is. To give up the beliefs that hold you back from trying something new and different. Whether it's my course, whether it's learning to draw or learning to paint or anything where your imagination and your creativity are sparked into trying something new and different. I know that people look for proof and evidence before they believe. And I think that if you go into something, try something, and you really give it a good go, but nothing happens, you could either add it to the list of what doesn't work, proof that you can't be creative, or say, maybe that course, maybe that technique, maybe that isn't for me. I'm going to keep exploring. Take a break here. It's the exploration. It's the learning process where joy can happen, where you can get motivated to try and gain new skills. It isn't some big deal in the big picture, but it's a big deal for your heart to feel that it can express itself. A lot of people these days have turned to making journals and writing journals as a way of expressing things from deep within themselves. And there's a whole bunch of things out there about even making your own journals. So in order to be creative and write in a journal, you have to make a journal to write the journal, and then you could see that could become very problematic if you don't believe you can even do those things. So, piece of paper, pencil, pen, take a look at what your beliefs are. Take a look at the things that you have truly thought run your life as far as your creative ability. If you are not creative, if you are not talented, if you're not gifted, where does that come from? And dig into it. Because I would really very much like to have you come and play in my classes. I'd love to see you posting pictures of things that you've done. And when you do that, when you share and put yourself out there, yeah, you're putting yourself out there for other people to judge you. My communities are loving and positive. I encourage everyone to share. I've noticed that I'm pretty much the only one who does. And maybe that's because it's intimidating. I don't know. Love to see you share something you've done. Love to have you post a picture and tell me the story of how that didn't get in the county fair. And how that made you feel. And what decisions you made at age 10 or 15 or 20 that are still with you today, that have kept you from exploring that part of you which is, I believe, in everyone. And that is the spirit of creativity, because that's really where the juice is. Promise you, that's where the juice is. So, time to think, time to journal. Please share here anytime that you watch this replay. And believe me, I'll be thrilled no matter what you share. You can even ring me out and tell me that was mean. But it's not coming from a mean place. It's coming from a place of love and high intention for you to open the door to your possibility. Whatever that is, let's find out. So until next week, I wish you a happy time, a creative time, an uplifting time, and don't look outside to the weather for evidence, because you'll never find it there. And yeah, sometimes the sun makes you feel good, and sometimes the rain makes you feel bad, but that's not where it's at. It comes from inside. Have a great week.